Side 4, The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, by Philip K. Dick, continuing on page 135. Always Schiller. It always comes back to that. And from Schiller to the rebellion of the Dutch against the Spanish, the War of the Lowlands, which shows up in Goethe's Faust, Part 2, where Faust finally finds something that will satisfy him, and he bids the moment stay. Seeing the Dutch reclaiming land from the North Sea. I translated that passage once myself. I wasn't satisfied with any of the English translations available. I don't know what I did with it. That was years ago. Do you know the Bayard Taylor translation? He rose, approached a row of books, found the volume, brought it back, opening it as he walked. Below the hills a marshy plain infects what I so long have been retrieving. That stagnant pool likewise to drain, were now my latest and my best achieving. To many millions let me furnish soil, though not secure, let free for active toil. Green fertile fields, where men and herds go forth at once with comfort on the newest earth, all swiftly settled on the hill's firm base, raised by a bold, hard-working populace. In here, a land like paradise about, up to the brink the tide may roar without, yet though it gnaw, to burst with force the limit, by common impulse all men seek to hem it. Yes, to this thought I hold with firm persistence, this wisdom's ultimate and true, he only earns his freedom and existence. I said, who daily conquers them anew. Yes, Tim said. He closed the copy of Faust Part 2. I wish I hadn't lost the translation I made. He then opened the book again. Do you mind if I read the rest? Please do, I said. Thus here, by dangers girt, shall glide away of childhood, manhood, age, and vigorous day. And such a throng I fain would see, stand on free soil among a people free. Then dared I hail the moment fleeting, ah, linger still, thou art so fair. At that point God has won the bet in heaven, I said. Yes, Tim said, nodding. The traces cannot of mine earthly being in eons perish. They are there, anticipating here such lofty bliss. I now enjoy the highest moment, this. That's a very beautiful and clear translation, I said. Tim said, Goethe wrote Part 2 just a year before his death. I remember only one German word from that passage, verdienen, earns his freedom. I suppose that would be Freiheit, freedom. Perhaps it went, verdient seine Freiheit. He broke off. That's the best I can do. Earns his freedom who daily conquers it. Them, freedom and existence, anew. The highest point in German enlightenment, from which they so tragically fell. From Goethe, Schiller, Beethoven, to the Third Reich and Hitler. It seems impossible. And yet it had been prefigured in Wallenstein, I said, who picked his generals by means of astrological prognostications. How could an intelligent, educated man, a great man, really, one of the most powerful men of his times, how could he begin to believe in that? Bishop Archer said, It is a mystery to me. It is an enigma that perhaps will never be solved. I saw how tired he was, so I got my coat and purse, said good night, and departed. My car had been ticketed. Shit, I said to myself as I pulled the ticket from the wiper blade and stuck it into my pocket. While we're reading Goethe, lovely Rita Metermaid is ticketing my car. What a strange world, I thought. Or rather, strange worlds, plural. They do not come together. 9. Bishop Timothy Archer conceived in his mind, after much prayer and pondering, after much application of his brilliant analytical faculties, The notion that he had no choice but to step down as Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of California and go, as he phrased it, into the private sector. He discussed this matter with Kirsten and me at length. "I have no faith in the reality of Christ," he informed us. "None whatsoever. I cannot in good conscience go on preaching the kerygma of the New Testament. Every time I get up in front of my congregation, I feel that I am deceiving them." "You told Bill Lundborg that night that Christ's reality is proven by Jeff coming back," I said. "It's not," Tim said. "It fails to. I have exhaustively scrutinized the situation, and it fails to." "What does it prove, then?" Kirsten said. "Life after death," Tim said, "but not the reality of Christ. Jesus was a teacher whose teachings were not even original. I have the name of a medium, a Dr. Garrett living in Santa Barbara. I will be flying down there to consult him, to try to talk to Jeff. Mr. Mason recommends him." He examined a slip of paper. "Oh," he said, "Dr. Garrett is a woman. Rachel Garrett. I was certain it was a man." He asked if the two of us wished to accompany him to Santa Barbara. It was his intention, he explained, to ask Jeff about Christ. Jeff could tell him, through the medium, Dr. Rachel Garrett, if Christ were real or not, genuinely the Son of God, and all the rest of that stuff that the churches teach. This would be an important trip. Tim's decision as to whether to resign his post as bishop hinged on this. Moreover, Tim's faith was involved. He had spent decades rising within the Episcopal Church, but now he seriously doubted whether Christianity was valid. That was Tim's term, valid. It struck me as a weak and trendy term, falling tragically short of the magnitude of the forces contending within Tim's heart and mind. However, it was the term he used. He spoke in a calm manner, devoid of any hysterical overtones. It was as if he were planning whether or not to buy a suit of clothes. "Christ," he said, "is a role, not a person. It, the word, is a mistransliteration from the Hebrew Messiah, which literally means the anointed one, which is to say, the chosen one. The Messiah, of course, comes at the end of the world and ushers in the age of gold, which replaces the age of iron, the age we now live in. This finds its most beautiful expression in the 4th eclogue of Virgil. Let me see, I have it here." He went to his books as he always did in time of gravity. "We don't need to hear Virgil," Kirsten said in a biting tone. "Here it is," Tim said, oblivious to her. "Ultima cunii venit iam carminis itas. Magnus—" "That's enough," Kirsten said sharply. He glanced at her, puzzled. Kirsten said, "I think it's insanely foolish and selfish of you to resign as bishop." "Let me translate the eclogue for you at least," Tim said. "Then you'll understand better." "I understand that you're destroying your life and mine," Kirsten said. "What about me?" He shook his head. "I'll be hired on at the Foundation for Free Institutions." "What the hell is that?" Kirsten said. "It's a think tank," I said, "in Santa Barbara." "Then you're going to be talking with them while you're down there?" Kirsten said. "Yes." He nodded. "I have an appointment with Pomeroy, who's in charge of it. Felton Pomeroy. I'd be their consultant in theological matters." "They're very highly thought of," I said. Kirsten gave me a look that would have withered trees. "There's been nothing decided," Tim said. "We are going to see Rachel Garrett anyhow. I see no reason why I shouldn't combine the two in a single trip. That way I'll have to fly down there only once." "I'm supposed to set up your appointments," Kirsten said. "Actually," Tim said, "this will be a purely informal discussion. We'll have lunch. I'll meet the other consultants. I'll see their buildings and gardens. They have very lovely gardens. I saw the Foundation's gardens several years ago and still remember them." To me, he said, "You'll love them, Angel. Every kind of rose is represented, especially peace. All the 5-star patented roses are there, or however it is roses are rated. May I read the two of you the translation of Virgil's eclogue? Now comes the final age announced in the Cumean Sibyl's chant. The great succession of epochs is born anew. Now the Virgin returns, the reign of Saturn returns. Now a new race descends from heaven on high. O chaste Lucina, goddess of birth, smile upon the boy just born, in whose time the race of iron shall first cease, and a race of gold shall arise throughout the world. Thine own Apollo is now king. Kirsten and I looked at each other. I saw Kirsten's lips move, but I heard no sound. Heaven only knows what she was saying and thinking at that moment, as she witnessed Tim shoot down his career and life out of conviction, more properly lack of conviction, faith in the Savior. The problem for Kirsten was simply that she could not see the problem. To her, Tim's dilemma was a phantom dilemma, manufactured for bookish reasons. According to her reasoning, he had the option to shed the problem any time he saw fit. Her analysis was simply that Tim had become restive in his job as bishop and wanted to move on. Asserting a loss of faith in Christ was his way of justifying his career move. Since it was a stupid career move, she did not approve. After all, she gained so very much from his status. As she had said, Tim was not thinking about her. He thought only of himself. Dr. Garrett is highly recommended, Tim said almost in a plaintive voice, as if appealing to one or the other of us for support. Tim, I said, I really think... You think with your crotch, Kirsten said. What? I said. You heard me. I know about your little conversations that you two have after I go to bed, when you're alone, and I know you've been meeting. Meeting what? I said. Each other. Christ, I said. Christ, Kirsten echoed. Always Christ. Always the summoning of the almighty Son of God to justify your selfishness and what you're up to. I find it disgusting. I find both of you disgusting. To Tim she said, I know you visited her goddamn record store last week. To buy an album, Tim said, of Fidelio. You could have gotten it here in the city, Kirsten said, or I could have picked it up for you. Tim said, I wanted to see what she had. She doesn't have anything I don't have, Kirsten said. The Missa Solemnis, Tim said, faintly. He seemed dazed, appealing to me. He said, Can you reason with her? I can reason with myself, Kirsten said. I can reason out exactly what's going on. You better knock off taking those downers, Kirsten, I said. And you better stop turning on 5 times a day. Her look carried such furious hate that I could not credit my senses. You smoke enough grass to... She broke off. More than the San Francisco Police Department uses in a month. I'm sorry. I'm not feeling well. Excuse me. She walked into the bedroom. The door shut silently after her. We could hear her stirring around. Then we heard her go into the bathroom. Water ran. She was taking a pill. Probably a barbiturate. To Tim, who stood inert and amazed, I said, Barbiturates cause that kind of personality change. It's the pills talking, not her. I think... He rallied. I really want to fly down to Santa Barbara and see Dr. Garrett. Do you think it's the fact that she's a woman? Kirsten, I said, or Garrett? Garrett. I could swear it was a man. I just now noticed the first name. I may have gotten it wrong. Maybe that's what's upsetting her. She'll calm down. We'll go together. Dr. Mason said that Dr. Garrett is elderly and infirm and semi-retired, so she won't pose any threat to Kirsten once she sees her. To change the subject, I said, Did you play the Missa Solemnis that I sold you? No, Tim said vaguely. I haven't had time. It's not the best recording, I said. Columbia uses a peculiar microphone placement. They have microphones scattered around throughout the orchestra, with the idea of bringing out the individual instruments. The idea is good, but it does away with hall ambience. It bothers her that I'm stepping down, Tim said, as bishop. You should think about it longer, I said, before you do it. Are you sure it's this medium you want to consult? Isn't there someone in the church you go to when you have a spiritual crisis? I will be consulting Jeff. The medium acts as a passive agent, much in the fashion that a telephone acts. He went on then to explain how misunderstood mediums are. I half listened, neither impressed nor caring. Kirsten's hostility had upset me, even though I had become used to it. This amounted to more than her chronic bitchiness. I can tell a red freak when I see one, I said to myself. The personality change, the hair-trigger response, the paranoia. She is crapping out on us, I said to myself. She is going down the drain. Worse, she is not going down the drain alone. Her nails are dug deep in us, and we go perforce along. Shit, this is just dreadful. A man like Tim Archer should not have to put up with this. I should not have to. Kirsten opened the bedroom door. Come in here, she said to Tim. I will in a minute, Tim said. You will come in here now. I said, I'll take off. No, Tim said, you will not take off. I have further things to discuss with you. Is it your contention that I should not step down as bishop? When my book comes out about Jeff, I will have to step down. The church will not allow me to publish a controversial book of that sort. It is too radical for them. Put another way, they are too reactionary for it. It is ahead of its time, and they are behind the times. There is no difference between my stand on this issue and my stand on the Vietnam War. I bucked the establishment on that, and I should theoretically be able to buck the establishment on the issue of life beyond the grave. But with the war, I have support from the youth of America. But in this matter, I have support from no one. Kirsten said, You have my support, but that doesn't matter to you. I mean public support, the support of those in power, those who control human minds, unfortunately. My support means nothing to you, Kirsten repeated. It means everything to me, Tim said. I would not have dared to write the book without you. I would not even have believed without you. It is you who gives me my strength, my capacity to understand. And from Jeff, when we have contacted him, I will learn about Jesus Christ one way or another. I will learn if the Zadokite documents do in fact indicate that Jesus spoke only second-hand of what he had been taught. Or possibly Jeff will tell me that Christ is with him, or he with Christ, in the other world, the upper realm, where we all go eventually, where he is now, reaching across to us as best he can, God bless him. I said, You see this business with Jeff, then, as a sort of opportunity to clear up your doubts one way or another about the meaning of the Zadokite. I think I have made that clear, Tim interrupted peevishly. That is why it is so crucial to talk to him. How strange, I thought, to use his son, make calculated use of his dead son, to determine an historical issue. But it is more than an historical issue. It is Tim Archer's entire corpus of faith, the summation for him of belief itself. Belief, or the falling away of belief. What is at stake here is belief versus nihilism. For Tim to lose Christ is for Tim to lose everything. And he has lost Christ. His statements to Bill that night may have been Tim's last defense of the fortress before that fortress fell. It may have fallen then, or perhaps before then. Tim argued from memory, as if from a page, a written speech spread out before him, as when in the celebration of the Last Supper he reads from the Book of Common Prayer. The Son, his Son, my husband, subordinated to an intellectual matter. I could never myself view it that way. This amounts to a depersonalization of Jeff Archer. He is converted into an instrument, a device for learning. Why, he is converted into a talking book, like all these books that Tim forever reaches for, especially in moments of crisis. Everything worth knowing can be found in a book. Conversely, if Jeff is important, he is important not as a person, but as a book. It is books for books' sakes, then, not knowledge even for the sake of knowledge. The book is the reality. For Tim to love and appreciate his son, he must, as impossible as this may seem, he must regard him as a kind of book. The universe to Tim Archer is one great set of reference books from which he picks and chooses as his restless mind veers on, always seeking the new, always turning away from the old. It is the very opposite of that passage from Faust that he read. Tim has not found the moment where he says, "Stay." It is still fleeing from him, still in motion. And I am not much different, I realized. I, who graduated from the English department at UC Berkeley. Tim and I are of a kind. Has it not been the final canto of Dante's Commedia that struck off my identity when I first read it that day when I was in school? Canto 33 of Paradiso, for me the culmination, where Dante says, "I beheld leaves within the unfathomed blaze into one volume bound by love, the same that the universe holds scattered through its maze. Substance and accidents and their modes became as if fused together, all in such wise that what I speak of is one simple flame." The superb Lawrence Binyon translation. And then C.H. Grandgent comments on this passage, "God is the book of the universe." To which another commentator, I forget which one, said, "This is a Platonist notion. Platonist or otherwise, this is the sequences of words that framed me, that made me what I am. This is my source, this vision and report, this view of final things. I do not call myself a Christian, but I cannot forget this view, this wonder. I remember the night I read that final canto of Paradiso, read it, truly read it for the first time. I had that infected tooth, and I hurt hideously, unbearably, so I sat up all night drinking bourbon, straight, and reading Dante, and at 9 a.m. the next day I drove to the dentist's without phoning, without an appointment, showed up with tears dripping down my face, demanding that Dr. Davidson do something for me, which he did. So that final canto is deeply impressed onto and into me. It is associated with terrible pain, and pain that went on for hours, into the night, so there was no one to talk to. And out of that I came to fathom the ultimate things in my own way, not a formal or official way, but a way nonetheless. He who learns must suffer, and even in our sleep, pain that cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, and in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom to us by the awful grace of God. Or however it goes. Aeschylus, I forget now, one of the three of them who wrote the tragedies. Which means that I can say with all truthfulness that for me the moment of greatest understanding in which I knew spiritual reality at last came in connection with emergency root canal irrigation, 2 hours in the dentist chair, and 12 hours drinking bourbon, bad bourbon at that, and simply reading Dante without listening to the stereo or eating. There was no way I could eat, and suffering, and it was all worth it. I will never forget it. I am no different, then, from Timothy Archer. To me, too, books are real and alive. The voices of human beings issue forth from them and compel my assent, the way God compels our assent to world, as Tim said. When you have been in that much distress, you are not going to forget what you did and saw and thought and read that night. I did nothing, saw nothing, thought nothing. I read, and I remember. I did not read Howard the Duck, or the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, or Snatch comics that night. I read Dante's Commedia, from Inferno through Purgatorio, until at last I arrived at the 3 colored rings of light, and the time was 9 a.m., and I could get into my fucking car and shoot out into traffic in Dr. Davidson's office, crying and cursing the whole way, with no breakfast, not even coffee, and stinking of sweat and bourbon. A sorry mess indeed, much gaped at by the dentist's receptionist. So for me, in a certain unusual way, for certain unusual reasons, books and reality are fused. They join through one incident, one night of my life. My intellectual life and my practical life came together. Nothing is more real than a badly infected tooth. And having done so, they never completely came apart again. If I believed in God, I would say that He showed me something that night. He showed me the totality, pain, physical pain, drop by drop. And then, this being His dreadful grace, there came understanding. And what did I understand? That it is all real. The abscessed tooth and the root canal irrigation, and, no less and no more, 3 circles from its substance now appeared, of 3 colors, and each an equal whole. That was Dante's vision of God as the Trinity. Most people, when they try to read the Commedia, get bogged down in Inferno, and suppose his vision to be that of a chamber of horrors. People head up in shit, people head down in shit, and a lake of ice, suggesting Arabic influences, that is the Muslim hell. But this is only the beginning of the journey. It is how it starts. I read the Commedia through to the end that night, and then shot up the street for Dr. Davidson's office, and was never the same again. I never changed back into what I had previously been. So books are real to me, too. They link me not just with other minds, but with the vision of other minds, what those minds understand and see. I see their worlds as well as I see my own. The pain and the crying and the sweating and stinking and cheap Jim Beam bourbon was my Inferno, and it wasn't imaginary. What I read bore the label Paradiso, and Paradiso it was. This is the triumph of Dante's vision, that all the realms are real, none less than the others, none more than the others, and they blend into each other by means of what Bill would call gradual increments, which is indeed the proper term. There is a harmony in this because, like automobiles of today in contrast to autos of the 30s, no sharp break exists. God save me from another night like that. But God damn it, had I not lived out that night, drinking and crying and reading and hurting, I would never have been born, truly born. That was the time of my birth into the real world, and the real world for me is a mixture of pain and beauty, and this is the correct view of it because these are the components that make up reality. And I had them all there that night, including a packet of pain pills to carry home with me from the dentist's after my ordeal had ended. I arrived home, took a pill, drank some coffee, and went to bed. And yet, I feel that this was what Tim had not done. He had either not integrated the book and the pain, or if he had got it wrong. He had the tune, but not the words. More correctly, he had the words, but those words pertained not to world, but to other words, which is termed by philosophy books and articles on logic a vicious regress. It is sometimes said in such books and articles that, again, a regress threatens, which means that the thinker has entered a loop and is in great danger. Usually he does not know it. A critical commentator with a mind that is keen and an eye that is keen comes along and points this out, or doesn't. For Tim Archer, I could not serve as that critical commentator. Who could? Ding-a-ling Bill had taken a good shot at it and had been sent back to his East Bay apartment to think better of it. Jeff has the answers to my questions, Tim said. Yes, I should have said, but Jeff does not exist, and very likely the questions themselves are irreal as well. That left only Tim, and he was busily preparing his book dealing with Jeff's return from the next world. The book that Tim knew would finish off his career in the Episcopal Church, and moreover deal him out of the game of influencing public opinion. That is a high price to pay. That is a very vicious regress. And indeed it threatened. It was in fact at hand. The time for the trip to Santa Barbara to visit Dr. Rachel Garrett, the medium, had come. Santa Barbara, California, strikes me as one of the most touchingly beautiful places in the country. Although technically, which is to say geographically, it is a portion of Southern California, spiritually it is not. Either that or else we in the North supremely misunderstand the Southland. A few years ago, anti-war students from the University of California at Santa Barbara burned down the Bank of America, to everyone's secret delight. The town, then, is not cut off from time and world, not isolated, although its lovely gardens suggest a tame persuasion rather than a violent one. The three of us flew from the San Francisco International Airport to the small airport at Santa Barbara. We had to go by two-motor prop plane, that airport being too short of runway length to accommodate jets. Law requires that the city's adobe character, which is to say Spanish colonial style, be preserved. As the cab took us to the house where we would stay, I noted the overwhelmingly Spanish design of everything, including arcade-type shopping centers. To myself I said, "This is a place where I reasonably might live, if I ever depart the Bay Area." Tim's friends with whom we stayed made no impression on me. They consisted of retractile, genteel, well-to-do people who stayed out of our way. They had servants. Kirsten and Tim slept in one bedroom. I had another, a rather small one, obviously made use of only when the other rooms had filled up. The next morning, Tim and Kirsten and I set forth by cab to visit Dr. Rachel Garrett, who would, no doubt, put us in touch with the dead, the next world, heal the sick, turn water into wine, and perform whatever other marvels were necessary. Both Tim and Kirsten seemed excited. I felt nothing in particular, perhaps only a dim consciousness of what we planned, what lay ahead. Not even curiosity, only what a starfish living at the bottom of a tidal pond might feel. We found Dr. Garrett to be a rather lively, small, elderly Irish lady wearing a red sweater over her blouse, even though the weather was warm, and low-heeled shoes, and the sort of utility skirt suggesting that she performed all her own chores. "And who are you again?" she said, cupping her ear. She could not even figure out who stood before her on her porch. Not an encouraging beginning, I said to myself. Presently the four of us sat in a darkened living room, drinking tea and hearing from Dr. Garrett a narration, delivered with enthusiasm, of the heroism of the IRA, to which, she told us proudly, she contributed all the money she took in via her seances. However, she informed us, seance was the wrong word. It suggests the occult. What Dr. Garrett did belonged within the realm of the perfectly natural. One could rightly call it a science. I saw in a corner of the living room, among the other archaic furniture, a Magnavox radio phonograph of the 40s, a large one, the kind with two identical 12-inch speakers. On each side of the Magnavox, stacks of 78 records, albums of Bing Crosby and Nat Cole and all the other trash of that period could be discerned. I wondered if Dr. Garrett still listened to them. I wondered if, in her supernatural fashion, she had learned about long-playing records and the artists of today. Probably not. To me, Dr. Garrett said, "And you are their daughter?" "No," I said. "My daughter-in-law," Tim said. "You have an Indian guide," Dr. Garrett said to me brightly. "Really?" I murmured. "He's standing just behind you, to your left. He has very long hair. And behind you on your right side stands your great-grandfather on your father's side. They are always with you." "I had a feeling that was the case," I said. Kirsten gave me one of her mixed looks. I said no more. I settled back against the couch with all its pillows, noted a fern growing in a huge clay pot near the doors leading to the garden. I noted assorted uninstructive pictures on the walls, including several famous loser pictures of the 20s. "Is it about the sun?" Dr. Garrett said. "Yes," Tim said. I felt as if I had found my way into Giancarlo Menotti's opera The Medium, which Menotti describes in his album liner notes for Columbia Records as set in Madame Flora's weird and shabby parlor. That is the trouble with education, I realized. You have been everywhere before, seen everything, vicariously. It has all already happened to you. We are Mr. and Mrs. Gobineau, visiting Madame Flora, a fraud and lunatic. Mr. and Mrs. Gobineau have been coming to Madame Flora's seances, or rather scientific sessions, every week for nearly 2 years, as I recall. What a drag. Worst of all, the money Tim will be paying her goes to kill British soldiers. This is a fundraiser for terrorists. Great. "What is your son's name?" Dr. Garrett asked. She sat in an ancient wicker chair, leaning back, her hands clasped together, her eyes slowly shutting. She had begun to breathe through her mouth, as the very ill do. Her skin resembled that of a chicken, with bits of hair here and there, little tufts like minor, scarcely watered plants. The whole room and everything in it now possessed a vegetable quality, totally lacking in vitality. I felt myself drained and being drained, my own energy taken away. Perhaps the light, or lack of light, gave me this impression. I did not find it pleasant. "Jeff," Tim said. He sat alert, his eyes fixed on Dr. Garrett. Kirsten had gotten a cigarette from her purse, but did not light it. She merely held it. She also scrutinized Dr. Garrett, with evident expectations. "Jeff has passed across to the distant shore," Dr. Garrett said. As the newspapers reported, I said to myself. I had expected a lengthy preamble from Dr. Garrett to set up the scene. I was wrong. She launched into it at once. "Jeff wants you to know that—" Dr. Garrett paused as if listening. "You should feel no guilt. Jeff has been trying to reach you for some time. He wanted to tell you that he forgives you. He has tried one means after another to attract your attention. He has stuck pins into your fingers. He has broken things. He has left notes to you." Dr. Garrett opened her eyes wide. "Jeff is highly agitated. He—" She broke off. "He took his own life." "You are batting 1,000, I thought acridly. "Yes, he did," Kirsten said, as if Dr. Garrett's statement was a revelation, or else confirmed in a startling way something up to now only suspected. "And violently," Dr. Garrett said. "I get the impression that he used a gun." "That's correct," Tim said. "Jeff wants you to know that he is no longer in pain," Dr. Garrett said. "He was in a great deal of pain when he took his own life. He didn't want you to know. He suffered from great doubts about the worth of living." "What does he say to me?" I said. Dr. Garrett opened her eyes long enough to fathom who had spoken. "He was my husband," I said. "Jeff says that he loves you and prays for you," Dr. Garrett said. "He wants you to be happy." "That and 50 cents, I thought, will get you a cup of coffee." "There is more," Dr. Garrett declared. "A great deal more. It's all coming in a rush. Oh, my. Jeff, what is it you're trying to tell us?" She listened silently for a time, her face showing agitation. "The man at the restaurant was a Soviet what?" Again she opened her eyes wide. "My goodness. A Soviet police agent." Jesus, I thought. "But there's nothing to worry about," Dr. Garrett said then, showing relief. She leaned back. "God will see that he is punished." I glanced questioningly at Kirsten, trying to catch her eye. I wanted to know what, if anything, she had said to Dr. Garrett. Kirsten, however, sat staring fixedly at the old lady, apparently dumbfounded. So it would seem I had my answer. "Jeff says," Dr. Garrett said, "that it is a matter of utmost joy to him that Kirsten and his father have each other. This is a great comfort to him. He wants you to know that. Who is Kirsten?" "I am," Kirsten said. "He says," the old lady continued, "that he loves you." Kirsten said nothing, but she listened with more intensity than I had ever seen her display before. "He felt it was wrong," Dr. Garrett said. "He says he's sorry, but he couldn't help it. He feels guilty about it, and he would like your forgiveness." "He has it," Tim said. "Jeff says that he can't forgive himself," Dr. Garrett said. "He also felt anger toward Kirsten for coming between him and his father. It made him feel cut off from his father. I get the impression that his father and Kirsten went on a long trip, a trip to England, and left him behind. He felt very badly about that. Again the old lady paused. Angel is not to smoke any more drugs, Dr. Garrett said then. She smokes too much. What is it, Jeff? I can't pick this up clearly. Too many numbers. I don't know what that means. I laughed, in spite of myself. Does that make any sense to you? Dr. Garrett said to me. In a way, I said, paying out as little line to her as possible. Jeff says he's glad about your job at the record store, Dr. Garrett said. But, she laughed, you're not being paid enough. He liked it better when you worked at the shop, kind of shop. A bottle shop? Law office and candle shop, I said. Strange, Dr. Garrett said, puzzled. Law office and candle shop. It was in Berkeley, I said. Dr. Garrett said, Jeff has something very important to say to Kirsten and his father. Her voice now had become faint, almost reduced to a rasping whisper, as if coming from a vast distance away, traveling over invisible wires strung between stars. Jeff has some dreadful news he wants to convey to the two of you. This is why he has been trying so badly to get through to you. This is why the pins and the burning and the breaking and the disordering and the smearing. He has a reason, a dreadful reason. Silence, then. Leaning toward Tim, I said, This is a judgment call, but I want to leave. No, Tim said. He shook his head. His face showed unhappiness. 10. What a peculiar mixture of nonsense and the uncanny, I thought, as we waited for elderly Dr. Rachel Garrett to go on. Mention of Fred Hill, the KGB agent. Mention of Jeff disapproving of my turning on. Scraps derived obviously from newspapers, how Jeff had died and his probable motivations, lumpen psychoanalysis and scandal sheet garbage, and yet, stuck in here and there, a fragment like a tiny shard that could not be explained. Beyond doubt, Dr. Garrett had easy access to most of the knowledge she had divulged, but there remained a creepy residuum, defined as that which remains after certain deductions are made. So this is the right term, and I have had a long time, many years, to mull over it. I have mulled, and I can explain no part of it. How could Dr. Garrett know about the Bad Luck Restaurant? And even if she knew that Kirsten and Tim had met originally at that place, how could she have known about Fred Hill, or what we supposed was the case with Fred Hill? It had been the joke passed endlessly between Jeff and me that the owner of the Bad Luck Restaurant in Berkeley had been a KGB agent, but this fact wasn't printed anywhere. No one had ever written it down, except perhaps in the computers of the FBI, and of course at KGB GHQ in Moscow, and it was only speculation anyhow. The issue of my turning on could be a shrewd guess, since I lived and worked in Berkeley, and as everyone in the world knows, all the people in Berkeley do dope regularly. In fact, do it to excess. A medium is traditionally one who relies on a potpourri of hunches, common knowledge, clues unknowingly delivered by the audience itself, delivered unintentionally and then handed back. And of course, the standard bullshit, such as Jeff loves you, and Jeff isn't in any more pain, and Jeff felt a lot of doubt. Generalizations available to anyone at any time, given the known facts. Yet an eerie sensation held me, even though I knew that this old Irish lady who gave money, or said she gave money, to the Irish Republican Army was a fraud, that we three collectively were being fleeced out of our money, fleeced too, in the sense that our credulity was being pandered to and manipulated by someone in the business of doing this, a professional. The primary medium, it sounded like the medical term for cancer, the primary cancer. Dr. Mason had undoubtedly passed on everything he had learned and knew. This is how mediums work it, and we all know this. The time to have left was before the revelation came, and now it was going to come, dumped on us by an unscrupulous old lady with dollar signs in her eyes and a clever ability to fathom the weak links in human psyches. But we didn't leave, and so it followed, as the night the day, that we got to hear from Dr. Garrett what had so agitated Jeff, causing him to come back to Tim and Kirsten as the occult phenomena that they logged each day for Tim's forthcoming book. It seemed to me as if Rachel Garrett had become very old as she sat in her wicker chair, and I thought about the ancient Sibyl. I could not remember which Sibyl it had been, the one at Delphi or at Cumae, who had asked for immortality, but had neglected to stipulate that she remain young, whereupon she lived forever, but got so old that eventually her friends hung her up on the wall in a bag. Rachel Garrett resembled that tattered wisp of skin and fragile bones, whispering out of the bag nailed to the wall. What wall in what city of the empire I do not know. Perhaps the Sibyl is still there. Perhaps this being who faced us as Rachel Garrett was in fact that same Sibyl. In any case, I did not want to hear what she had to say. I wanted to leave. "Sit down," Kirsten said. I realized then that I had stood without intending to. Flight reaction, I said to myself. Instinctive. Upon experiencing close adversaries, the lizard part of the brain. Rachel Garrett whispered, "Shishan." But now she pronounced it correctly, Shishan, which I did not do, nor had Jeff, nor did Tim. But that was how she pronounced it herself, and gave up on getting anyone else to, at least in the States. At this, Kirsten gave a muffled gasp. The old lady in the wicker chair said, "Ultima cumii venit iam carminis etas, magnus ab integro seclorum nascitu ordo, iam redit et Virgo, redeunt Saturnia regna, iam nova." My God, Tim said. It's the fourth eclogue of Virgil. "That's enough," Kirsten said faintly. I thought, the old lady is reading my mind. She knows I thought about the Sibyl. Speaking to me, Rachel Garrett said, "Dies ire, dies illa, solvet seclum in favilla, teste David cum Sibylla." Yes, she is reading my mind, I realized. She even knows that I know it. As I think, she reads my thoughts back to me. "Mors Kirsten nunc carpit," Rachel Garrett whispered. "Hodie, calamitas, timeo." She drew herself up in her wicker chair. "What did she say?" Kirsten said to Tim. "You are going to die very soon," Rachel Garrett said to her in a calm voice. I thought today, but not today. I saw it here, but not quite yet. Jeff says so. This is why he came back. To warn you. "Die how?" Tim said. "He isn't sure," Rachel Garrett said. "Violently?" Tim said. "He doesn't know," the old lady said. "But they are preparing a place for you, Kirsten." All her agitation had gone now. She seemed completely composed. "This is awful news," she said. "I'm sorry, Kirsten. No wonder Jeff caused all the many disturbances. Usually there is a reason. They return for a good reason." "Can anything be done?" Tim said. "Jeff thinks that it is inevitable. the old lady said after a time. Then what was the point of him coming back? Kirsten said savagely. Her face was white. He wanted to warn his father as well, the old lady said. About what? I said. Rachel Garrett said, he has a chance to live. No, Jeff says. His father will die soon after Kirsten. Both of you are going to perish. It won't be long. There is some uncertainty about the father, but none about the woman. If I could give you more information, I would. Jeff is still with me, but he doesn't know anymore. She shut her eyes and sighed. All the vitality, it seemed, had gone out of her as she sat in the old chair, her hands clasped together. Then suddenly she leaned forward and picked up her teacup. Jeff was so anxious that you know, she said in a bright, chipper voice. He feels so much better now. She smiled at us. Still ashen, Kirsten murmured, Is it all right if I smoke? Oh, I'd prefer you didn't smoke, Dr. Garrett said. But if you feel you must. Thank you. Her hand trembling, Kirsten lit her cigarette. She stared and stared at the old lady, with dislike and fury, or so it seemed to me. I thought, kill the Spartan messengers, lady. Hold them responsible. We want to thank you very much, Tim said to Dr. Garrett in a level, controlled voice. He began by degrees to rouse himself, to take command of the situation. So then, Jeff is beyond any doubt whatsoever alive in the afterworld, and it has been he who has come to us with what we call the phenomena. Oh, indeed, Dr. Garrett said. But Leonard told you that. Leonard Mason. You knew that already. I said, could it have been an evil spirit posing as Jeff, and not actually Jeff? Her eyes bright, Dr. Garrett nodded. You are exceedingly alert, young lady. Yes, it certainly could have been, but it was not. One learns to tell the difference. I found no malice in him, only concern and love. Angel, your name is Angel, isn't it? Your husband apologizes to you for his feelings about Kirsten. He knows that it is unfair to you, but he thinks that you will understand. I said nothing. Did I get your name right? Rachel Garrett asked me, in a timid and uncertain tone. Yes, I said. To Kirsten, I said, let me have a puff on your cigarette. Here. Kirsten passed it to me. Keep it. I'm not supposed to smoke. To Tim, she said, well, shall we go? I don't see any reason for staying any longer. She reached for her purse and coat. Tim paid Dr. Garrett. I did not see how much, but it took the form of cash, not a check, and then phoned for a cab. 10 minutes later, the three of us rode back down the winding hillside roads to the house where we had accommodated ourselves. Time passed, and then half to himself, Tim said, that was the same eclogue of Virgil that I read to you that day. I remember, I said. It seems a remarkable coincidence, Tim said. There is no way she could have known it as a favorite of mine. Of course, it is the most famous of his eclogues, but that would scarcely account for it. I have never heard anyone else quote it but myself. It was as if I were hearing my own thoughts read back to me aloud, when Dr. Garrett lapsed into Latin. And I too had experienced that, I realized. Tim had expressed it perfectly and precisely. Tim, I said, did you say anything to Dr. Mason about the Bad Luck Restaurant? Eyeing me, Tim said, what is the Bad Luck Restaurant? Where we met, Kirsten said. No, Tim said. I don't even remember the name of it. I remember what we had to eat. I had abalone. Did you ever tell anybody, I said to him, anybody at all, at any time, anywhere, about Fred Hill? I don't know anybody by that name, Tim said. I'm sorry. He rubbed his eyes wearily. They read your mind, Kirsten said. That's where they get it. She knew my health was bad. She knows I'm worried about the spot on my lung. What spot? I said. This was the first I had heard about it. Have you been in for more tests? When Kirsten did not answer, Tim said, She showed a spot several weeks ago. It was a routine X-ray. They don't think it means anything. It means I'm going to die, Kirsten said bitingly, with palpable venom. You heard her, the old bitch. Kill the spot and runners, I said. Furiously, Kirsten lashed at me. Is that one of your Berkeley-educated remarks? Please, Tim said in a faint voice. I said, It's not her fault. We pay $100 to be told we're both going to die, Kirsten said. And then on top of that, according to you, we should be grateful? She scrutinized me with what struck me as psychotic malice, exceeding anything I had ever seen in her or in anyone else. You're okay. She didn't say anything was going to happen to you, you cunt. You little Berkeley cunt. You're doing fine. I'm going to die, and you get to have Tim all to yourself, with Jeff dead and now me. I think you set it up. You're involved, God damn you. Reaching, she took a swing at me. There, in the back of the yellow cab, she tried to hit me. I drew back, horrified. Grabbing her with both hands, Tim pinned her against the side of the cab, against the door. If I ever hear you use that word again, he said, you are out of my life forever. You prick, Kirsten said. After that we drove in silence. The only sound was the occasional racket of the cab company's dispatcher from the driver's two-way radio. Let's stop somewhere for a drink, Kirsten said as we approached the house. I don't want to have to deal with those awful mousy people. I just can't. I want to shop. To Tim she said, We'll let you off. Angel and I'll go shopping. I really can't take any more today. I said, I don't feel like shopping right now. Please, Kirsten said tightly. Tim said to me in a gentle voice, Do it as a favor to both of us. He opened the cab door. Okay, I said. After giving Kirsten money, all the money he had with him apparently, Tim got out of the cab. We shut the door after him and presently arrived at the downtown shopping district of Santa Barbara, with all the many lovely little shops and their various handcrafted artifacts. Soon Kirsten and I sat together in a bar, a nice bar, subdued, with low music playing. Through the open doors we could see people strolling around in the bright midday sunlight. Shit, Kirsten said as she sipped her vodka Collins. What a thing to find out, that you're going to die. Dr. Garrett worked backward from Jeff's return, I said. How do you mean? She stirred her drink. Jeff had come back to you, that's the given, so Garrett summoned up a reason to explain it, the most dramatic reason she could find. He returned for a reason. That's why they return. It's a commonplace. It's like, I gestured, like the ghost in Hamlet. Gazing at me quizzically, Kirsten said, In Berkeley there is an intellectual reason for everything. The ghost warns Hamlet that Claudius is a murderer, that he murdered him, Hamlet's father. What's Hamlet's father's name? He's just called Hamlet's father, the late king. Kirsten, an owlish expression on her face, said, No, his father is named Hamlet, too. $10 says otherwise. She extended her hand. We shook. The play, Kirsten said, instead of being called Hamlet, should properly be called Hamlet Jr. We both laughed. I mean, Kirsten said, this is just sick. We're sick going to that medium, coming all this way. Of course, Tim is meeting with those double-domed eggheads from the think tank. You know where he really wants to work? Don't ever say this to anyone. But he'd like to work for the Center for the Study of Democratic Institutions. This whole business about Jeff coming back. She sipped her drink. It's cost Tim a lot. He doesn't have to bring out the book. He could drop the project. As if thinking aloud, Kirsten said, "How do those mediums do it? It's ESP. They can pick up your anxieties. Somehow the old biddy knew I have medical problems. It goes back to that damn peritonitis. That's public knowledge that I had that. There's a central file they keep, mediums of the world. Media, I guess, is the plural. And my cancer. They know I'm plagued with a second-rate body, sort of a used car, a lemon. God sold me a lemon for a body." "You should have told me about the spot." "It's none of your business." "I care about you." "Dyke," Kirsten said. "Homo. That's why Jeff killed himself, because you and I are in love with each other." Both of us had begun laughing now. We bumped heads, and I put my arm around her. "I have this joke for you. We're not supposed to call Mexicans greasers anymore, right?" She lowered her voice. "We're supposed to call them lubricanos," I said. She glanced at me. "Well, fuck you." "Let's pick up somebody," I said. "I want to shop. You pick up somebody." In a more somber tone, she said, "This is a beautiful city. We may be living down here, you realize. Would you stay up in Berkeley if Tim and I moved down here?" "I don't know," I said. "You and your Berkeley friends. The Greater East Bay Co-Sexual Communal Free Love Exchange Partners Enterprise Unlimited. What is it about Berkeley, Angel? Why do you stay there?" "The house," I said. And I thought, memories of Jeff in connection with the house. The co-op on University Avenue, where we used to shop. "I like the coffee houses on the avenue," I said, "especially Larry Blake's. One time Larry Blake came over to Jeff and me, downstairs in the Rathskeller. He was so nice to us. And I like Tilden Park." "And the campus," I said to myself. "I can never free myself of that. The eucalyptus grove down by Oxford. The library." "It's my home," I said. "You'd get accustomed to Santa Barbara." I said, "You shouldn't call me a cunt in front of Tim. He might get ideas." "If I die," Kirsten said, "would you sleep with him? I mean, seriously." "You're not going to die." "Dr. Spooky says I am." "Dr. Spooky," I said, "is full of it." "Do you think so?" God, it was weird. Kirsten shivered. I felt she could read my mind, that she was tapping it, like you tap a maple tree, reading my own fears back to me. "Would you sleep with Tim? Answer me seriously. I need to know." "It would be incest." "Why?" "Oh, okay. Well, it's already a sin for him. Why not add incest? If Jeff is in heaven and they're preparing a place for me, apparently I'm going to go to heaven. That's a relief. I just don't know how seriously to take what Dr. Garrett said. Take it with the entire output of salt from the Polish salt mines for 1 full calendar year. "But," Kirsten said, "it is Jeff coming back to us. Now we have it confirmed. But if I'm going to believe that, don't I have to believe the other, the prophecy?" As I listened to her, a line from Dido and Aeneas entered my head, both the music and the words. "The Trojan prince, you know, is bound by fate to seek Italian ground. The queen and he are now in chase." Why had that come to mind? The sorceress. Jeff had quoted her, or I had. The music had been a part of our lives, and I was thinking about Jeff now, and the things that had bound us together. Fate, I thought. Predestination. Doctrine of the Church, based on Augustine and Paul. Tim had once told me that Christianity as a mystery religion had come into existence as a means of abolishing the tyranny of fate, only to reintroduce it as predestination. In fact, double predestination, some predestined to hell, some to heaven, Calvin's doctrine. We don't have fate anymore, I said. That went out with astrology, with the ancient world. Tim explained it to me. Kirsten said, he explained it to me, too, but the dead have precognition. They're outside of time. That's why you raise the spirits of the dead, to get advice from them about the future. They know the future. To them it's already happened. They're like God. They see everything. Necromancy. We're like Dr. Dee in Elizabethan England. We have access to this marvelous supernatural power. It's better than the Holy Spirit, who also grants the ability to foresee the future, to prophesy. Through that wizened old lady we got Jeff's absolute knowledge that I'm going to kick off in the near future. How can you doubt it? Readily, I said. But she knew about the Bad Luck Restaurant. You see, Angel, we either reject it all or accept it all. We don't get to pick and choose. And if we reject it, then Jeff didn't come back to us and we're nuts. And if we accept it, he did come back to us, which is fine as far as that goes, but then we have to face the fact that I'm going to die. I thought, and Tim, too. You've forgotten about that in your concern for yourself, as is typical of you. What's the matter? Kirsten said. Well, she said Tim would die, too. Tim has Christ on his side. He's immortal. Didn't you know that? Bishops live forever. The first bishop, Peter, I imagine, is still alive somewhere, drawing a salary. Bishops live eternally, and they get paid a lot. I die, and I get paid almost nothing. It beats working in a record store, I said. Not really. Everything about your life is out in the open, at least. You don't have to skulk around like a second-story man. This book of Tim's, it's going to be clear as day to everyone who reads it that Tim and I are sleeping together. We were in England together. We witnessed the phenomena together. Perhaps this is God's revenge against us for our sins. This prophecy by that old lady. Sleep with a bishop and die. It's like see Rome and die. Well, I can't say it's been worth it. I really can't. I'd rather be a record clerk in Berkeley like you. But then I'd have to be young like you to get the full benefits. I said, my husband is dead. I don't have all the breaks. And you don't have the guilt. Balls, I said. I have plenty of guilt. Why? Jeff? Well, anyhow, it wasn't your fault. We share the guilt, I said. All of us. For the death of someone who was programmed to die. You only kill yourself if the DNA death strip tells you to. It's in the DNA. Didn't you know that? Or it's what they call a script, which is what Eric Byrne taught. He's dead, you know. His death script or strip or whatever caught up with him, proving him right. His father died and he died the exact same age. It's like Chardin, who desired to die on Good Friday and got his wish. This is morbid, I said. Right. Kirsten nodded. I just heard a while ago that I'm doomed to die. I feel very morbid, and so would you, except that you're exempt for some reason. Maybe because you don't have a spot on your lung and you never had cancer. Why doesn't that old lady die? Why is it me and Tim? I think Jeff's malicious saying that. It's one of those self-fulfilling prophecies you hear about. He tells Dr. Spooky I'm going to die, and as a result I die. And Jeff enjoys it because he hated me for sleeping with his father. The hell with both of them. It goes along with the pins stuck under my fingernails. It's hate. Hate toward me. I can tell hate when I see it. I hope Tim points that out in his book. Well, he will, because I'm writing most of it. He doesn't have the time. And if you want to know the truth, the talent either. All his sentences run together. He has logorrhea, if you want to know the blunt truth, from the speed he takes. I said, I don't want to know. Have you and Tim slept together? No, I said, amazed. Bull. Christ, I said, you're crazy. Tell me it's due to the reds I take. I stared at her. She stared back, unwinkingly, her face taut. You're crazy, I said. Kirsten said, you have turned Tim against me. What? He thinks that Jeff would be alive if it hadn't been for me, but it was his idea for us to get sexually involved. I could not think what to say. Your mood swings are getting greater, I said finally. Kirsten said in a fierce, grating voice, I see more and more clearly. Come on. She finished her drink and slid from her stool, tottered, grinned at me. Let's go shop. Let's buy a whole lot of Indian silver jewelry imported from Mexico. They sell it here. You regard me as old and sick and a red freak, don't you? Tim and I have discussed it, your view of me. He considers it damaging to me and defamatory. He's going to talk to you about it sometime. Get prepared. He's going to quote canon law. It's against canon law to bear false witness. He doesn't consider you a very good Christian. In fact, not a Christian at all. He doesn't really like you. Did you know that? I said nothing. Christians are judgmental, Kirsten said, and bishops even more so. I have to live with the fact that Tim confesses every week to the sin of sleeping with me. Do you know how that feels? It is quite painful, and now he has me going. I take communion and I confess. It's sick. Christianity is sick. I want him to step down as bishop. I want him to go into the private sector. Oh, I said. I understood then. Tim could then come out in the open and proclaim her, his relationship with her. Strange, I thought, that it never entered my mind. When he is working for that think tank, Kirsten said, the stigma and the hiding will be gone because they don't care. They're just secular people. They're not Christians. They don't condemn others. They're not saved. I'll tell you something, Angel. Because of me, Tim is cut off from God. This is terrible, for him and for me. He has to get up every Sunday and preach, knowing that because of me, he and God are severed, as in the original fall. Because of me, Bishop Timothy Archer is recapitulating the primordial fall in himself, and he fell voluntarily. He chose it. No one made him fall or told him to do it. It's my fault. I should have said no to him when he first asked me to sleep with him. It would have been a lot better, but I didn't know a rat's ass about Christianity. I didn't comprehend what it signified for him, and what eventually it would signify for me as the damn stuff oozed out all over me, that Pauline doctrine of sin, original sin. What a demented doctrine, that man is born evil. How cruel it is. It's not found in Judaism. Paul made it up to explain the crucifixion, to make sense out of Christ's death, which in fact makes no sense. Death for nothing, unless you believe in original sin. Do you believe in it now? I asked. I believe I've sinned. I don't know if I was born that way, but it's true now. You need therapy. The whole church needs therapy. Old Dr. Batshit could take one look at me and Tim and know we're sleeping together. The whole media news network knows it, and when Tim's book comes out, he has to step down. It has nothing to do with his faith or lack of faith in Christ. It has to do with me. I'm forcing him out of his career, not his lack of faith. I'm doing it. That cracked old lady only read back to me what I already knew, that you can't do what we're doing. You can do it, but you have to pay for it. I'd just as soon be dead. I really would. This is no life. Every time we go somewhere, fly somewhere, we have to get 2 hotel rooms, one for each of us, and then I slip up the hall into his room. Dr. Batshit didn't have to be a psychic to ferret it all out. It was written on our faces. Come on, let's shop. I said, you're going to have to lend me some money. I didn't bring enough along to shop. It's the Episcopal Church's money. She opened her purse. Be my guest. You hate yourself, I said. I intended to add the word unfairly, but Kirsten interrupted me. I hate the position I'm in. I hate what Tim has done to me, made me ashamed of myself and my body and being a woman. Is this why we founded FEM? I never dreamed I'd ever be in this situation, like a $40 whore. Sometime you and I should talk, the way we used to talk before I was busy all the time writing his speeches and making his appointments. The bishop's secretary who makes sure he doesn't reveal in public the fool that he is, the child that he is. I'm the one who has all the responsibility, and I'm treated like garbage. She handed me some money from her purse, grabbed out at random. I accepted it and felt vast guilt, but I took the money anyhow. As Kirsten said, it belonged to the Episcopal Church. One thing I have learned, she said as we left the bar and emerged into the daylight, is to read the fine print. I'll say one thing for that old lady, I said. She certainly loosened up your tongue. No, it's being out of San Francisco. You haven't seen me out of the Bay Area and Grace Cathedral before. I don't like you, and I don't like being a cheap whore, and I don't particularly like my life in general. I'm not sure I even like Tim. I'm not sure I want to continue with this, any of this. That apartment. I had a much better apartment before I met Tim, although I suppose that doesn't count. It's not supposed to, anyhow. But I had a very rewarding life. But I was programmed by my DNA to get mixed up with Tim, and now some old scuzzbag rails at me that I'm going to die. You know what my feeling is about that, my real feeling? It no longer matters to me. I knew it anyway. She just read my own thoughts back to me, and you know it. That is the one thing that sticks in my mind from this séance, or whatever we're supposed to call it. I heard someone express my realizations about myself and my life and what's become of me. It gives me courage to face what I have to face and do what I have to do. And what is that? You'll see in due time. I've come to an important decision. This today helped clear my mind. I think I understand. She spoke no further. It was Kirsten's custom to cast a veil of mystery over her connivings. That way, she supposed, she added an element of glamour. But in fact, she did not. She only murked up the situation, for herself most of all. I let the subject drop. Together, then, we sauntered off, in search of ways to spend the church's wealth. We returned to San Francisco at the end of the week, laden with purchases and feeling tired. The bishop had secured, covertly, not for publication, a post with the Santa Barbara think tank. It would be announced presently that he intended to resign from his post as Bishop of the Diocese of California. The announcement would be coming ineluctably, his decision having been made, his new job arranged for, nailed down. Meanwhile, Kirsten checked into Mount Zion Hospital for further tests. Her apprehension had made her taciturn and morose. I visited her at the hospital, but she had little to say. As I sat beside her bed, ill at ease and wishing I were elsewhere, Kirsten fussed with her hair and complained. I left dissatisfied, with myself basically. I seemed to have lost my ability to communicate with her, my best friend, really, and our relationship was dwindling, along with her spirits. At this time, the bishop had in his possession the galleys for his book dealing with Jeff's return from the next world. Tim had decided on the title, Hear Tyrant Death, which I had suggested to him. It is from Handel's Belshazzar, and reads in full, Hear, Tyrant Death, thy terrors end. He quoted it in context in the book itself. Busy as always, overextended and preoccupied with 101 major matters, he elected to bring the galleys to Kirsten in the hospital. He left them with her to proofread and at once departed. I found her lying propped up, a cigarette in one hand, a pen in the other, the long galley pages propped up on her knees. It was evident that she was furious. "Can you believe this?" she said by way of greeting. "I can do them," I said, seating myself on the edge of the bed. "Not if I throw up on them." "After you're dead, you'll work even harder." Kirsten said, "No, I won't work at all. That's the point. As I read over this thing, I keep asking myself, who is going to believe this crap? I mean, it is crap. Let's face it. Look." She pointed to a section on the galley page, and I read it over. My reaction tallied with hers. The prose was turgid, vague, and disastrously pompous. Obviously, Tim had dictated it at his rush, speed it up, let's get it over with velocity. Equally obviously, he had never once looked back. I thought to myself, the title should be Look Backward, Idiot. Start with the final page, I said, and work forward. That way you won't have to read it. I'm going to drop them. Oops. She simulated dropping the galleys onto the floor, catching them just in time. Does the order matter on these? Let's shuffle them. Write in stuff, I said. Write in, this really sucks, or your mother wears army boots. Kirsten, pretending to write, said, Jeff manifested himself to us naked with his pecker in his hand. He was singing the Stars and Stripes Forever. Both of us were laughing now. I collapsed against her, and we embraced. I'll give you $100 if you write that in, I said, almost unable to talk. I'll just turn it over to the IRA. No, I said, to the IRS. Kirsten said, I don't report my earnings. Hookers don't have to. Her mood changed then. Her spirit palpably ebbed away. Gently, she patted me on the arm, and then she kissed me. What's that for? I said, touched. They think the spot means I have a tumor. Oh, no, I said. Yep. Well, that's the long and the short of it. She pushed me away then with ill-stifled anger. Can they do anything? I mean, they can operate. They can remove the lung. And you're still smoking. It's a little late to give up cigarettes. What the hell? This raises an interesting question. I'm not the first to ask it. When you're resurrected in the flesh, are you resurrected in a perfect form? Or do you have all the scars and injuries and defects you had while alive? Jesus showed Thomas his wounds. He had Thomas thrust his hand into Jesus' side. Did you know that the church was born from that wound? That's what the Roman Catholics believe. Blood and water flowed from the wound, the spear wound, while he was on the cross. It's a vagina. Jesus' vagina. She did not seem to be joking. She seemed now solemn and pensive. A mystical notion of a spiritual second birth. Christ gave birth to us all. I seated myself on the chair beside the bed, saying nothing. The news, the medical report, stunned and terrified me. I could not respond. Kirsten, however, looked composed. They have given her tranks, I realized, as they do when they deliver this sort of news. You consider yourself a Christian now? I said finally, unable to think up anything else, anything more appropriate. The foxhole phenomenon, Kirsten said. What do you think of the title, Here Tyrant Death? I picked it, I said. She gazed at me with intensity. Why are you looking at me like that? I said. Tim said he picked it. Well, he did. I gave him the quotation, one among a group. I submitted several. When was this? I don't know. Some time ago. I forget. Why? Kirsten said, It's a terrible title. I abominated it when I first saw it. I didn't see it until he dumped these galleys in my lap, literally in my lap. He never asked. She broke off, then stubbed her cigarette out. It's like somebody's idea of what a book title ought to consist of. A parody of a book title. By someone who never titled a book before. I'm surprised his editor didn't object. Is all this directed at me? I said. I don't know. You figure it out. She began then to scrutinize the galleys. She ignored me. Do you want me to go? I said awkwardly, after a time. Kirsten said, I really don't care what you do. She continued with her work. Presently she halted a moment to light up another cigarette. I saw then that the ashtray by her bed overflowed with half-smoked, stubbed-out cigarettes. 11. I learned of her suicide by hearing it from Tim on the phone. My little brother had come over to the house to visit me. It was on Sunday, so I didn't have to go to the musique shop that day. I had to stand there and listen to Tim telling me that Kirsten had just slipped away. I could see my little brother, who had really been fond of Kirsten. He was assembling a balsa wood model of a Spad 13. He knew the call was from Tim, but of course he didn't know that now Kirsten, along with Jeff, was dead. "You're a strong person," Tim's voice sounded in my ear. "I know you will be able to stand up to this." "I saw it coming," I said. "Yes," Tim said. He sounded matter-of-fact, but I knew his heart was breaking. End of Side 4. Change side selector switch. This book is continued on the next cassette.